like this.
Hello, friends and family, and welcome to the Pieces Collective. We are here for the Wisdom, Wealth, and Wellness Workshop. But before we get directly into it, hi, Andre, how are you this evening?
Hello.
Hi, we're going to figure out who is in the chat. If you're in the chat, go ahead and say hello. Andre, you can be up here for this right now if you want, or you can turn your camera off and wait until I introduce you. Either way, I love the company.
Thank you. I'll do that.
So yes, tell me where you are coming in from. Yes, tell me who you are, where you are, what the weather's like. The chat is to your right-hand side. Hi there, Outer Banks, Philly. Yes, welcome Kayla. Welcome Karen. Welcome Charlene. Yes, welcome Andrew. Good, this is so lovely. Yes, excellent. Yes, Maryland, perfect. It's a beautiful day. It is. I am in Austin, Texas, and it is a beautiful day here too. The sun was shining way up this morning. It was like ready to pop up for specifically this event. So you are in the right place at the right time. If, again, you obviously know how to use the chat. It's good to see you, Nessa. If you have questions for the panelists, you can put them in the chat. You can also, you're encouraged to put them in the Q&A. And if you see a question in the Q&A that you really want the panelists to answer, you can upvote that question. Hi, Keith. Yes. Thank you so much for being here. Perfect. I'm so glad. And from San Diego. Excellent. So, as I was saying, again, welcome to those of you who are here for the panel, to those of you who have brought us together, and to those of you who are in the chat ready for this conversation. Today, we are at the Wisdom, Wealth, and Wellness Workshop. We are discussing why fathers matter, passing on the legacy of leadership. And I would like to say that our panels today have been brought together by Ikram Muhammad, the owner of Pieces Collective, a handcrafted accessory and home goods company whose goal is to contribute to human development through experiential learning, economics, and education. Please join me in welcoming Ikram Muhammad to tell us more about the Pieces Collective. Yes, you can say hi, hello, welcome in the chat if you're there. While Ikrama gets here, I have been really excited about this entire conversation. I really get to go and finally see my own dad in a couple of months. And this conversation is a big one for me. It means a lot. How are you, Andrew?
I'm doing fine. Thank you. Thank you very much, Shannon. Thank you for having me.
You're so very welcome. We are wondering right now if Ikrama is going to join us. I know that she will. She may or may not, but in the chat, so you are more than welcome to stay up here with me, or you can turn your camera and mic or just your camera off for a second until I introduce you. But just like the other gentleman that I had up here, Andre, I love company. I love it. But we do, as you can see, our panelists are very excited to join us and to get this conversation started. I am, yes, of course, Andrew, it is my distinct pleasure. I am going to go ahead and invite our panelists up one by one, and we've got some amazing people tonight. Again, we are here for why fathers matter, and we have Dr. Andrey Bundley. Dr. Andrey Bundley began his career in education as a teacher and progressed to the role of principal for several Baltimore schools. His primary focus is to improve the quality of life for our youth and young adults. Thus, he was elated to have accepted the Mayor of Baltimore's offer to become the director of the Office of African American Male Engagement. Dr. Andrew I am today. Today is the day, friends. Mr. Bundley was raised in Baltimore, Maryland, and educated in Baltimore City public school system. He earned a master's of education degree in counselor's education from Penn State University and a doctorate in curriculum and instruction from Penn State. Mr. Bundley is married. Dr. Bundley is married and the proud father of one son. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. It is evening here in Baltimore.
Yeah, it's so good to see you. I'm really glad that you are here. We also have Mr. Jonathan Cartagena, is the director of the Fatherhood Initiative program at the Housing Opportunities Commission of Montgomery County. He is an experienced public speaker and advocate for low-income individuals and families with a focus on serving fathers in his work with the Fatherhood Initiative program. Jonathan has worked with more than 560 fathers and built countless relationships with community partners throughout Montgomery County and the state of Maryland. He is a Catholic University alumnus and proud father and husband. Welcome. I am so glad you are here, Jonathan. Whenever you're ready, you can turn your camera and mic on. We also have Brother Andrew Muhammad. He is the co-founder and vice president of We Our Us. Brother Muhammad is focused on consistent and collective action to strategically assist people, especially boys and young men, in obtaining resources to help guide them to productive pathways and move their goals forward with unified energy. Please welcome Brother Andrew Muhammad. Yes, thank you so much. Yes, we have you all. Perfect, perfect. There's so many people, you're getting lots of claps. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you this evening?
I'm doing fine. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
You're doing well. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, of course. It's my pleasure. So we're going to start off with just some questions for everyone, really. Questions for everyone. So in the chat, if you are here, thank you. I'm glad that you're joining us. In the chat, if you can, I would love to know what are some positive memories you have of your favorite father figure? What are some positive memories you have of your favorite father figure? And as you are out there are putting that in the chat, Jonathan, we'll start with you. And we'll just go around. This is a conversation, so jump in when you feel ready. But yes, what are some memories, some positive memories you might have of your favorite father figure?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to use my father figure. I think I have a couple of good memories, or great memories. I think one of them was my father is a big soccer fan. And then when I was in high school and I was able to play American football, because in Latinos call it football, soccer, football. But when I told him I was playing football, he said, "You made the soccer team?" And I said, "No, I made the American football team." He was like, "Whoa, you got to be careful. You're going to get hurt." But after he started coming to a couple games, I remember he was at all my games, and he started this chant at all the games that everyone took to, and it was the "Ole, ole, ole, ole," and it's a soccer chant, but he made it famous here for my football games, and everyone took to it. And they were like, "Is that your dad in the stands? We need him to come to every game because he brings that enthusiasm and that hype." That's one of my memories that I have of a dad figure for me.
Anyone else?
Wait. Well, my father figure was my coach. I grew up without a dad, but I played sports, and my father figure, his name was Charlie Harrison, and so he was about 10 years older than us. But the thing that I remember about him is he was just selfless. He was giving to other people's children, and I think that eventually rubbed off on me as I moved on in my life. But I mean, I don't recall having money. I didn't have anybody to give me additional money, but I remember eating after every game. I didn't recall giving up any gas money, but I do remember riding to every game. I also remember that he had a car. I don't know if you all remember a car. I think it was made by Chevy. It was called a Vega. But it was Vega, but it only really looked like it seated 2, but he would take our whole team. So we were sitting on top of each other all the way up to the roof. So he was enthusiastic, but he was also, he didn't realize that it was dangerous for all of us to be in that little 2-seater car. But we all had to get to the game because you couldn't play basketball without having 5. So selflessness was what I remember in my father.
Same here. I'm a junior, but I don't know who senior is. Although I met him maybe 5 times in 52 years, but I just don't have. There's nothing there. But the coach, Mr. Lawson, Coach Lawson, it was a Catholic league. He would physically pick me up, and even though I may be running late and his car was crowded, I would jump in the seat. I would jump in the car and jump on somebody's lap, or So that's what it was. He was my father figure at the age of 9, 10, 11, playing Catholic basketball. So it felt great just being amongst somebody that cared about you, who you didn't even really grow up in the same household. But I remember it vividly because I always wanted that. So it was a great feeling just to have a grown man, somebody older than you, that cared about you.
Absolutely. We have some really wonderful memories here. My father taking us skiing every winter, working alongside my dad in a Black-owned mini grocery store, the pillar of the community, everybody's father. Excellent. These are beautiful. Watching Sunday football. This is great. So you all have touched on something that is obvious to me. And so this is the question that I'd like you just to discuss. And that is, can you discuss fathers versus father figures? How do they differ, and does it matter? And this is open.
Jonathan, you go.
I'm gonna bring everyone on this one, but I think you have the whole idea of you can have someone who's biologically your father. That doesn't necessarily mean he's a dad there, right? And then you can have that father figure as well, right? So, some folks have the story of mom was playing both roles: mom, dad, uncle, grandma, grandpa. Those were father figures to them. Grandpops, uncles, and so I think what happens is that someone who's labeled as that father figure, it's kind of showing the ropes, right? Showing the ropes, not just as parental guidance, but also how to become what, in essence, for either if you're a female or a male, if you're a boy or girl, to transform into that respectful young man or respectful young woman in our society, right? So that can come in a lot of shapes and faces. But that's my take on that.
Yeah, I think the father figure, it's almost it's self-explanatory. It's just a figure, something that you can see. But the actual father, an individual which I'm constantly trying to become, I'm a father of one son, is to ride with your child as they develop. To roll with them, to continue to develop in their midst, so that you can guide them in the place that you kind of have an idea of where they're gonna go. But at the same time, get them to go in those places, and not be afraid to have them go in the places where they need to go. There's some things that I don't have regrets, but there's some things that I thought about because I'm constantly riding with my son. It's like, wow, if I would possibly could have done this or done that, because you can't do it right, because I'd never been a father before until I had a son. So I was just trying to get it right, but it's no excuse because I have never been a father before. Just as Andrew said, we have that in common. I know what it was like not to have a father, not to have somebody ride with me. And so just the ride, just the continuous guidance and learning from my son is, I always say to him, I say, man, if you just my presence, however messed up it might be or however good it is, you can thank your grandfather for what he didn't do with me. Because what he didn't do with me, I kind of said, well, I know what I aspired to have in a father and know what I missed. And so I tried to be at least that in concept for my son, but you only can do it in concept and get the experience along the way, right? So I used to, when my son was growing up, I say, man, if I got this wrong, just, just understand it. I ain't never been a father before. I'm working at it. So, that's how I see it.
Yep, and thanks, Doc, and Jonathan. It's a learning experience. You have just from the father figure standpoint, we have impacted so many young men, and they don't understand, or they may not explain to you that you are a father figure. You really don't know, because I have coached Boy Scouts for 15 years, Scoutmaster, Boys and Girls Clubs for 9 years, and so many young men that from coaching that I've been involved in, that I know that I'm a father figure to them. But unless they tell you that, you don't really know. It's just something you do. And then from a father standpoint, that's a whole nother dynamic, because of the sacrifice, and you really neglect them. You really neglect your children if you do what I do, and I'm quite sure Brother Jonathan and Andre, because Andre, I know Doc was a principal for 30 years. So I know he neglected his children, his son. But the bottom line is, it's a learning experience. The beautiful thing is, as a father, you have an opportunity, as long as you live in it, you got a sound mind and good health, you can correct it. And that's what I'm dealing with right now. But I'm looking forward to the challenge, because I put so much energy in everybody else's children. Now as a father, I know what I need to do from a standpoint of time, not finances, not buying stuff, not going to a football game is good, or a baseball game or whatever. But time is important with your children. Time, quality, people say quality time, just time, invest in time. So yeah, that's where I'm at, Shannon.
Can you all talk about, because you're touching on, can you talk a little bit about the difference, if there is a difference, about being a father versus being a man? I'm hearing in all of everything that everybody is saying, Andre, you said, I've never been a father before, right? I'm learning. Andrew, you said, I'm learning. I'm going through a process. I'm investing time. And there's something in there about learning about yourself that sounds, that has to do with being a man and having to do with being a father. Is there a difference? Can you discuss fathers, being a father versus being a man? Is there a difference?
Well, I'll start off with that. I think it kind of goes, for me, I think it goes hand in hand, right? So it goes for anything, not just a man, just a respectable person, right? And those morals that you have and that way of being kind of transpires into what type of father or even parent, right? What type of parent you're going to be. I think that's important. And to the same sense, the child will see that, right? You don't have to say, hey, listen, I'm trying to be a good father to you, right? It's like, it doesn't matter what you say to the kid, the child, they're going to see how you respond to certain situations, how you respond to them, how they're going to learn off of your behaviors, the way you react to certain situations. And they're really learning by example, right? As cliche as it sounds, they're sponges, they're soaking everything up. So it's not necessarily what you're telling them, is what they see with their own eyes. So I go back to what I was saying, depending on, you said is man and father, You know, are they two different things or are they the same? Well, I like to say that I would take that hand in hand, because I would like to think that I'm a respectable man, which then, because I'm a respectable man, I can use that into fatherhood, right? Or being a dad. Um, and that's how I see things, right? Because I think it kind of flows in, it overflows into that. Although, you know, like you guys have nailed, you know, Dr. Bundley and Brother Andrew said, you know, having kids, when I had my kids for the first time, it was new to me. So I didn't have, you know, luckily I had my father growing up. I had that, but you become your own man. You become your own father. You could take what someone has taught you and you can go far left, or you could take what someone's shown you and manipulate and mold it into what fits you as you go through this journey of fatherhood, or as becoming a man, right?
Yeah, Jonathan, I think I might say the same thing that you just said, probably not as profound as you said it. You know, one of the things I think that father, just being a man rather, it gives you some foundation, because you're present, you're acknowledged that you're present, you're there. But being a father, as the more I become a father, there are more descriptors for me, right? Thank you descriptors by the things that are through my interaction. Let me use my son for an example. So I get the descriptor that I'm loving. Dad, thanks for the love. I'm available. Dad, thanks for taking a little time to go do that with me. I'm a provider. Dad, I really appreciate what you got me, right? So this fatherhood, this being a father, you don't get a chance to say that you're a good father. Just you're saying a good father, that clearly comes from you, right? You are a good father based on how you are experienced by that of those who are your children. And then they will begin to tell you, not intentionally talking about, let me tell you all the ways that you're a good father. It happens over time. But if you hear that you are loving, you're available, you're a provider, Dad, thanks for stepping up on that for me. You're a protector. You'll hear all of those things, and I call those are like those descriptors. So, you know, it's almost like leadership. You know, there are some people who think they're leaders because of some position that they're in, and they are just self-appointed leaders. But real leaders don't choose. Real leaders get chosen. And so that's the same thing with, you know, good fathers. You get chosen, and you are described to how you, from your child or your children, how and why you are that.
Great answers. Great answers. So I just want to say that from a man standpoint, it depends on how you define that, right? So from a boy to a man, the way I define man is one who's responsible for his actions, his thoughts, and represents the male figure. And then a father is a whole lot deeper, you know, because I think Jonathan said it, it's the same thing, but the father has a greater responsibility as it relates to life, because that means he's responsible for individuals, for a child. And the father, not only do he have to be a great planner, a great visionary, a great somebody that's responsible, but also, I mean, life is in his hands, and that's something that you have to grow into. Specifically, if you've never been taught that, if you don't know who senior is, like I didn't know, somebody got to teach you how to be a father, you know, or else you'll learn as you grow or as you go. And that's a process that most of us need to know in advance, because you have life in front of you, and a child needs that male figure, needs needs the male figure, period. Specifically, if it's a male, if it's a young man. I'm not going to say that the woman couldn't do it, but I'm just saying, in our climate today, a young man, a child, a boy needs his father there. Excuse me. So I just think that the two are synonymous, but the father has a greater responsibility as it relates to progress for his children.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to add to what Brother Andrew just said, is he said it right, and I think we need to shed light on that, is when, you know, a man turns into a father, like if he has a kid, you know, at that point when he's always a man, right? But he's a man technically without responsibilities of children. And so at that very instance, I think that's when a man has to know how to become selfless, right? He has to do away with the selfishness, because prior to having children, it was about him, and hopefully it was about his significant other, his wife, or whoever he's with the relationship, right? But no one understands that until you have children. And you know, I know the panel can chime in on that. Life changes like sporadically as soon as you have children, right? It's a whole 360. You know, when I wanted to buy those Jordans back in the day, I need to save that money because my kids now need clothes, right? And if you have more than one, you know, those Jordans could buy wardrobes for a couple of folks, right? So I think when you're a man and you turn into that father role, or you have children, it's a transition from selfishness to selflessness, right? And you really got to think about other folks. Also, around the same token, it sounds cliche, and you hear it with superheroes, but with great power comes great responsibility. It's the same concept here, because you have those folks looking up to you. You have your children eyeing you at every moment and every second. And so you know how they say, if you're in the limelight, you're under a microscope. Well, the same factor applies when you're with children. They're looking at your every move. So you have to make the right moves. And don't get me wrong, there's times where we may not make, like I know Dr. Bundley said, there's sometimes we don't get it. We didn't do good that day, right? We got to try. We got to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and try again the next day. But we can't stay stagnant. We have to continue to progress as men and as fathers.
We have a question here from the chat, and I want to try and combine this question with a question that I have for you. The question from the chat is, please share ideas for men to father the collective children. I'm seeing less organizations and individuals that provide male mentorship. And my question combined with that is, who were some mentors that you had? And yep, that's it. Who were some mentors that you had? How did they influence what you do now? Can you sort of weave in and out between the collective children and your own mentors?
Yeah, I had several individuals who, in hindsight, I realized that they were mentors. But let me start with the fathering the collective children. Andrew mentioned that I had been a principal of a school in Baltimore. I've been in education 30 some odd years. I was a principal, actually administrator for 25 of those years. My mother died when I was 13. I lived in 5 foster homes. But I talked about Charlie Harrison. I talked about individuals who were good examples, and I had a brother who cared enough for me, and he was a street dude, and he and I always talk about, he made the statement, he said, it's amazing, he called me Dre, he says, amazing, Dre, we grew up in the same household. I graduated from the state pen and you graduated from Penn State. Now, my brother was one of my heroes because he thought enough of me to tell me how I didn't want to go down that path. So you have those individuals who step in the gap for you. They're really the non-example, and they tell you that they're the non-example, and they tell you to go opposite. I thank God for my brother for that, right? He didn't ask me to test the prison system like he did. He told me to stay away from the prison system, and these are all the reasons why I need to do that. So I was able to be inspired as a principal and built a reputation of loving other people's children. That's why I go so hard for my own. And my wife was always say, I better not hear you tell your son, as hard as you go for other people's children, I'll knock you out if you don't take care of your own. She doesn't have to tell me that. But the fact of the matter is, I went hard for other people's children, and you really don't know. And Andrew and I, we get a chance to see it in Baltimore. You really don't know how much you've done for them until later on. And so they come to me telling me stories, or they come to Brother Andrew and telling him stories. I remember when Dr. Bundley was my teacher, or when he was my principal, he did X, Y, and Z. So yes, we have to be able to have the strength to love other people's children, right? For the fact that, the rule of reciprocity is coming back to you, or, you reaping what you sow, right? It's the right thing to do, and it really doesn't cost anything. So my son has never felt deprived, but other individuals' children have come and thanked me for loving them while I was in their space. So I can combine that with loving them by being present for them, right? What I loved about being a principal of a school is that the place where I did my work, I also did work for children from their perspective, not from what I said, but it was from what they said, right? And they said I, did a good job. And honestly, I say this all the time. I'm working on my second career. I retired from Baltimore City Public Schools, and I never worked a day in my life and went to work every day because it wasn't work. Because if you find something that you really love to do, you'll never work a day in your life. And so I never worked, but I went to work every day. And I did something not based on what I said, but what others have said about what I've done. So again, I don't choose the stories. The stories have been chosen for me based on their memory of their interaction with me.
I think I'm going to echo what Dr. Bundley said. I think it's important, especially in this line of work. Prior to working with fathers, I was working with youth at the Housing Opportunities Commission. And I think, before even going into a career with youth, I loved it from volunteering, right? Again, I was fortunate to have my father in my life. He had a great impact on my life. And I think what I wanted to do was share that with other folks, right? Especially kids that were coming from broken homes, folks who didn't have good role models, youth that, that were living that live in our communities. I just wanted to share that. And it's enjoyable, right? It's what Doc said. When you're doing something that you love, you're not really working. And I think I saw that, in my years as working with the youth. I was involved in that. I would work, I would go in at 8 and not leave till 10, just staying for, creating some extracurricular activity that kept the youth there, and they would come. And I would get some backlash from, for the kids' moms, and they were like, you got kids too of your own, right? And it's hard to, balance that sometimes, but you just get you get involved so much is that it's the passion for it. And it's important. And I think I want to echo what Doc said with, we have to be able to love other children as well. And what I mean, what I'm interpreting it as is that if you're a father, kids are kids, no matter whose they are, no matter what they look like, and they should be treated the same, right? And I always saw that, when I worked as a youth counselor and working with the youth, I saw these are my kids. I'm proud of these children. I'm proud of this youth that comes here, right? And I'm not their father, right? I wasn't that, but I was a figure to them, and I took that highly. I had high regards for that. I was proud of that, and I think because of that, it was radiant off of me. It was radiating off of me, and that the youth that we work with sees that, and they say, "Wow, there's someone out here." Like I think Andre said, that's another male that's positive, that cares about me, right? And I think that's so important, because that little spark right there that you provided to a youth or to a kid of being somewhat of a role model, even though you may not think it, goes a long way. That kid will take that into adulthood, and we were those kids. We are those kids, right? You have Dr. Andrey Bundley, you have Dr. Brother Andrew Muhammad, you have myself. We were those kids that had a little spark from someone else that pushed us along the way, and we're here speaking to you guys now, right? And speaking to you about the work that we've done. So I just wanted to echo that.
Mhm.
What was the question? Because I'm listening to these guys, and that helps. I don't have to say a whole lot of nothing. What was the question? I can't hear you. Can't hear you. Okay.
Talking about the question in the chat was, please share some ideas for men to father the collective children. I'm seeing less organizations and individuals that provide male mentorship. And my little follow-up question was, what were some programs or who were some mentors that helped you, period?
Yeah, excellent. And I'm listening to Jonathan and Doc, and they really answered it. The foundation is, my son is your son, my daughter is your daughter, and they basically answered it. Wherever you go, we should be helping children in the community, whether it be in the church, the mosque, the school, the mall, in the community, in the streets. Wherever you go, my son is your son. My daughter is your daughter. So that's the concept. It takes a village. I think a lot of us, that's not our approach. When you're talking about making an impact on a child's mind, just because you don't know them, or just because they're not dressed properly, or just because they may be on drugs, that's the problem with our community. Mentor, life skills. Life coach. It's every day, all day, 24/7, and it has to be in your DNA. And if it's not your DNA, you need to get around somebody. Follow Dr. Bundley, follow Brother Jonathan, and see what they do 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and how they impact young minds and children. Because if I see a child on the street suffering, begging, I'm jumping out my truck. I'm finding out, how can I help them? How can I serve them? Where's your mother? Where's your father? Why are you on this corner squeegeeing at 9 and 7 and 8 years old up on a highway on a heavy traffic area? That's a problem for me, and it impacts my soul, my spirit right away. So I have to respond. So I think that if all men, and I'm just dealing with the men, right? If the men take the approach that my son is your son, we'll make an impact immediately, specifically in these cities around the country. We have gotten away from that I have to take that approach. My son is your son.
Can you all share a little bit more of what it is that you do and your personal stories of what got you to this position?
Go ahead, John.
Okay. So a little bit of my personal story of what I do with the housing opportunities and what got me to this position. So, been here with the Housing Opportunities Commission for over 10 years. Like I said, I started as a youth counselor, working with youth, running a youth center within subsidized housing. And from there, work with the youth, build programs, you name it, we've done it there for youth programming. And then from there, gradually moved on working with adults. And then luckily for the Housing Opportunities Commission, we were lucky to receive funding to establish a fatherhood program. One of the first of its kind to be ever done with a housing authority 6 years back. And now we're here in our sixth year doing this work. And then for me, how I got into this work, I think we've been speaking about that. That theme has been congruent with everything that everyone has said. It kind of started at a young age, right? It's like, seeing, for me, my father was very instrumental for me. Just seeing the type of dad he was to my brother and I, it's instrumental. And I'm like, it was my role model. So I'm like, is there something I can do that has to do with this as a job, or what can I do? Because growing up, you had the folks saying, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an astronaut. And so, it wasn't until later down, and actually in college, that I decided to say, hey, I want to be a social worker. And so, no one, not even my parents, said, hey, you should do social work. They didn't know what that was at the time. And so I think that love for being around children, for family, kind of nested itself in my heart, and it kind of drove me to where I'm at now, especially here with this agency, with the Housing Opportunities Commission. And it continues to build, this love for this passion continues to drive me in what I do, right? And not just what I do, what we do, because believe me, it's a team. And I'm sure, the folks here, the guys here on this panel say, it's a team that drives the work that we're doing here, right? It takes a village, and we're only as good as our team. And I think that continues to drive me to push to be better, but to also push to reach out to touch more folks in what we do. And that kind of, in essence, is how I'm here now, where I'm at now. That answers the question.
I was I remember being asked a while back when I was young. I was a teenager. I was still in middle school, and they said, well, what do you want to be? And I said, I want to be a businessman. And they said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to teach. And they were like, you crazy. How you going to be a businessman and teach? How you going to, I want to be a businessman. You just want to be a businessman, but you want to be a teacher. Which one you want to be, a teacher? You want to be a businessman? So I want to be a businessman. And I went to a fight down at what we call in Baltimore, the Civic Center. And I remember that fight. It was Sugar Ray Leonard. And he was fighting some guy, I forget who he was, but he beat him really bad. And then I saw, after the fight, I saw a commercial. It was Sugar Ray Leonard drinking a Sprite and then doing an Everlast commercial about gloves, right? And it helped me to understand that I really wanted to be a businessman. But your business got to be about what you love, right? So children became my business, right? Working with people, children became my business. And how we've evolved to this point, Andrew and I, he'll tell you, possibly tell you the story, I won't do it, but I was just thinking out the blue, and Andrew had been doing great work in Baltimore. And it was crazy that the former mayor of the city, she asked me if I would come and work for her. But little did I know that she had asked Andrew if he would come and work for her. And I was at the point was getting ready to retire from city schools. And so she offered both Andrew and myself positions, and we became both the director and the deputy director of what is called now in Baltimore city government, the Mayor's Office of African American Male Engagement. When this particular mayor left, Andrew left as well, but before he left, and I'm still in the city government, we created a movement that Andrew is now the vice president of. It's called the We Are Us movement. And Andrew and Corey, who are the president and vice president, we basically go right down there our goal is that Baltimore is going to be a place where it's going to be crime free. Black men, particularly in Baltimore City, are predominantly the perpetrators and the victims of crime. And we just know that that's the hard work all over the country to help people understand how precious life is. And in order to do that, there's going to be some science, but woven in that science is some magnificent love. So we're doing this work now. It has the great respect of the mayor. I would say, and I would say this not because he's here, I say it away from him, and he probably hears it because I talk about him. Andrew brings an expertise because he talked about this whole idea of working with boys and men. Men listen to him. And he's evolving because I get a chance to sit back and watch him where people would say where he's not strong. I've watched those areas where people say you're not strong, and he's become where he was not so good, but he's gotten good because he wants to do. And so Baltimore is going to change. Baltimore is going to, and it's going to come through the work that we're doing. And we're going to use the science of love to help these men to understand, even in the midst of all this proliferation of guns, everybody has a gun. They got ghost guns. Everybody got guns. So we're never going to talk about a policy of stopping guns. So the only way we're going to do this is we're going to impact their hearts and minds, because the science says, whatever you think about, you bring about. But what's happening with a lot of people, they don't know how to put stuff on people's minds. And so that's where we are right now, putting stuff on individuals' minds, because your mind can only be where it's at, right, at that particular time. So, that's where we are. That's the work that I'm doing. Andrew can talk about with, the same work we're doing. And I'm still working for the government, but the movement is an entity in and of itself. And that movement is going to make the difference in the lives of people in Baltimore.
Hey, stop that, Doc. So, Shannon, can you repeat that again, please? Doc took my focus away, him and Jonathan.
So we're talking about what do you do now? Can you tell us a little bit about what you do now and your personal experience about what brought you to the position you're in?
Oh, that's great. So I'm gonna be very transparent. So back in 1993, I was facing 60 years in prison, and I wound up doing 10 years no parole. From 1993, I came home in 2000 in June. Got married to a beautiful wife, been married 20 years. I think the impact that was made on me as it relates to the work that I'm doing right now started with a tape that I listened to in 1993 titled "The Obedience is the Highest Form of Sacrifice" by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I really never studied nothing in my life, just being honest. I never studied anything. I was very good in math. I dropped out in the 10th grade, but I studied that tape inside a prison cell in Hagerstown, Maryland, for about 6 months. And I took notes and everything. And that tape impacted my entire life. And I'm saying that now because 1993, I was a fool. I was an idiot. I was still smoking, and I was in prison, but it impacted me 4 years later. I knew that I wanted something different. I knew I wanted to make an impact on young Black children, young Black men. I was thinking about myself and what I went through as a young man, and I didn't know better to tell people the things that happened to me, or I didn't know that I didn't really have nobody to look up to outside of drug dealers. But once I heard that tape, it gave me vision. It gave me it took the fear out of me in regards to me wanting to do something that was right. I was always taught in the streets to do what was wrong, and that was right in the streets. But that tape, "Obedience is the highest form of sacrifice," taught me to stand up on what was right. I always wanted to protect women. I always wanted to protect children. I always wanted to protect senior citizens. I just didn't know how. But I'm just being very transparent. if it wasn't for that tape, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan did, it gave me a foundation. And I always reverted back to that tape because I studied that tape for 6 months. And what that did was when I came home from prison in 2000 of June, I took a job. I took a job, which I never had before. I took a job at the Marriott, and I worked there for 15 years, and I worked my way up to a director. And I had 4 different departments. I had a budget of $5 million that I overseen, the payroll. And then from there, I knew that I wanted to give back, because working a job is not giving back, depending on what you're doing. The Marriott at that time, it wasn't giving back. It was service, but it wasn't giving back. So somebody came on the radio and said they needed more Black youth in Boy Scouts of America because the enrollment had went down in the suburbs in white America. Basically, back in 2000, that's who was living in the suburbs in Maryland anyway, in Baltimore City. So everything was geared towards the young Black man. So I joined Boy Scouts of America. It was non-traditional, but it was enough for me. First of all, I needed money, but also it was a way for me to give back. So all the programs was geared in towards the inner city areas that nobody would want to go in. So I took it on as a challenge. I did it for 15 years. That led me into juvenile justice, which was Boys and Girls Club. I did that for 9 years. And of course, the Nation of Islam was always the foundation. It gave me vision, and I knew that I just wanted to help young Black men. I knew that going. I just didn't know how, or how I was going to do it, and also be able to make money and help feed my family at that time. So the Boy Scouts, Boys and Girls Club, and then I started several different companies, and it just gave me a foundation to want to involve myself in different areas, particularly around saving life, because Baltimore has a history of average. The last 10 years we've been averaging 300 murders, and unfortunately, I want to say 95% has been young Black men, or just Black men in general. And if you look at the numbers, it's painful. It's very painful, particularly if you care, if you really care. Because for those who don't care, it doesn't bother them. That's not my responsibility. I don't care. Let them keep killing themselves. And I was just the opposite, because I knew that eventually at some point it would impact me, and that's what happened. So I just think that the nation taught me, gave me discipline, gave me structure. I wasn't worrying about religion. That wasn't the reason why I joined. It wasn't religion. It was concepts that needed for me to further my thinking, and then also how I can be effective in my city, in my community, and particularly, my family.
Thank you for sharing that with us, so we have an idea of where people are coming from. I want to take a small detour, just a little bit of a detour. Every one of you has mentioned life in general, helping Black youth, helping Black life. And we have this question: what is the difference in fathering a daughter versus fathering a son? Yeah. Look, Andrew, since you made that face, I'm going to ask you, go ahead and speak on it.
Yeah, so, great question. Something that our community need, something that we need to put emphasis on, something that we must take serious, something that we cannot play with. And really, the woman, the daughter, represents life. Even though she needs a male to bring life into existence, she's really the I don't want to say author, but she carries life, and that life must be protected, both lives, right? So what I learned in my 20 years of marriage, and what I'm learning dealing with the daughter versus the son. It's so easy to raise a son for me. I can raise a son from another country right now, and he'll love me. But what I found out with the daughter, and I talked to Doc about this, what I found out about the daughter is, you know, it's almost like a line being drawn in the middle. So you have the son over here, and you have the daughter over here. You think that the mother is Chief, chill out, chill. The mother is responsible for the daughter. Now, I'm just giving you my thinking, right? And probably a lot of other men, but that's not the case. So the daughter needs the same amount of attention as the son. Not only that, even though she may feel protected, but if you're not giving her the time, the protection is not there. You may think that, but physically, it's a disconnect, right? And I'm learning that right now. I'm learning. I have 4 daughters. And the great thing for me is I have an opportunity, because I'm still living, to fix it, right? But honestly, it's a joy if you understand the importance and the significance of spending time with your daughters just as much as your son. There is no it's a balance, but one shouldn't get more than the other. And I'm learning that right now, and I'm looking forward. I don't see it as a challenge. I see it as an opportunity for me to improve as a father. Thank you.
I wholeheartedly agree with Andrew, brother Andrew. I think he nailed it. He nailed it on the head. I mean, there's no difference. I mean, a child is a child. If it's a boy or a girl, they need the same amount of attention, same amount of love. And for me, like he said, I have 2 daughters. I have 1 son, 2 daughters. And the love from each of them it's incredible, right? It's different. They always say, you have the way that a baby girl shows love to you is different than your son or your daughters. But in the end, the exchange has to be reciprocated. It has to be the same. You have to give that love back to them equally. And I think it's important that you're teaching your son how to be a respectable man, how to treat women, how to do things moving forward, and also showing your daughters what to expect from a respectable man and how to treat men as well, right? I always use these examples. It has to be respect from both sides, and I think that has to be taught to young boys, and it has to be taught to young girls in order for them to be successful. But that love has to be the same for both. That time has to be the same for both, right? You have to designate both sets of time for both, your daughters and your sons, and showing them a good example of what to be, and having those conversations, right? Even as basic as having those conversations. Because I know us as fellas, I mean, I ran into, because when I first had my daughter, I was like, what do I do? I only had a son, and like Brother Andrew said, I could be a great dad to a son. Let's say you be a great dad to daughters now, right? And what does that entail? And it's okay to say that you don't have the answers, because it's a learning process. But I think it is vital to have these conversations with both your daughters and your sons of what they need to do in order to be successful, in order to be respectable young men and women, right? And have these conversations with them, and actually get their opinion on what they think. Because if we're not having these conversations, it's going unheard, and it's just it's a cycle, and I'm sorry to say, it's going to be an evil cycle if we're not having these conversations, right? So I echo what Brother Andrew said. I totally agree with him wholeheartedly, and I think it's very important that we show that love. And also, I think I also wanted to add, just thinking about something I had, speaking to one of our fathers in our program, prior to him coming into the program, he had a daughter and a son, and he said, I don't think I show love to my son the way I show love to my daughter, which is understandable. But, when I dug deep and I said, what do you mean by that? He said, I don't think I've ever told my son I loved him. And when he was in our class and learning fatherhood and just learning new techniques and tactics and just learning new skills, he found the value of the importance of expressing your love to your son and acknowledging the fact that you love him, saying that you love him, just like you would do your daughters. And like again, back to chiming on what Brother Andrew said, it's important that we designate that time and show that love equally.
I don't have a daughter, but I'm telling you, when I look at myself and understand who I am, she'd have had me right in the palm of her hand. I look at the work that I do with my own son, and wow. And I looked at other people's children, particularly the daughters that I had in my schools, and how I just squared up on, made things right for the young ladies in my schools and in my classroom. If I had my own daughter, wow, I'd have been a doting dad.
It's amazing to me as a daughter just to hear other fathers talk about this topic. So thank you for asking the question in the chat. Thank you, gentlemen, for answering it. So we are talking about this idea. This is Why Fathers Matter, passing on the legacy of leadership. And I'd like you, gentlemen, to speak on legacy and leadership. What legacy have you inherited, and what legacy do you hope to leave?
I've inherited a legacy, really a non-example of what fatherhood is. And the reason I say I inherited a non-example, and I'm thankful for it, because it gives me an opportunity, unfortunately, by being very reflective of what I know I missed and what I know I need to make certain is present in my time around, right? And so, just being an example, right? Just being an example by kind of sort of being, they say there are two kinds of people. I'd say this real quickly. There are those who try to parent by being painters, right? And then there are those who parent by being ophthalmologists. The painter wants you to see the representation of whatever he or she is painting the way they see it. The ophthalmologists just want to help you to see and choose. And that's what I love about, being able to leave a good legacy. Is just, as an ophthalmologist, if a person has a particular eye, whether it be a cataract, glaucoma, they want to get that thing fixed and just help people see. And Andrew talks about the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, and though I guess I'm a Muslim because I do submit, but I'm not a Muslim in that I grew up in the church. Andrew's mom and I grew up, we went to the same church. But one of the things that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us and has taught us is just give individuals an opportunity to choose. He said, if I give you a clean glass of water and a dirty glass of water, which one you gonna drink? Just choose and be responsible for the choices that you make. And so that's how I try to father. And I think if you do that, just helping my son to see and choose, see and choose, see and choose. Because if you do it that way, then they have to own the choices that they make. And you are there to guide them, of course, but you really want to help them to see and choose.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Doc. I agree with you on that. I think for me as well, I think a legacy that I think I'll break it down like this. It, not a saying, but I remember my dad always saying, you want to be better than me. Make it your goal to be better than than I was for you. And I didn't get that until I guess later down in life. I guess maybe in my 30s. And and I'm like, what does he mean? I mean, he was great. And he just said he wants the best for us. He wants you to be better. You can do so much more. Yes, you think I was great, or yes, you think I was a great role model, but be better than that. And so I guess that's the legacy I want to leave is, you know, that I tried my best, that whatever I did, the work that we're doing here, but also as a dad, hopefully my children, when I'm long gone, they say, my dad wasn't perfect, but he tried. And he left that heart, that determination. He left that idea that even if you're not perfect, you're going to be the best tomorrow. You're going to try. You're going to keep that going, and not just in parenting, just in all aspects of life, right? As long as you continue to build off of the momentum that you had yesterday, and you push forward to the next day, I mean, that's all you can ask an individual to do, right? And I think that goes and can be applied to whatever we do, whether it's the professions that we're in, whether it's the parents that we are, the spouses that we are, the boyfriends or the partners that we are. We can use that and push forward. And I think for me, if I'm able to leave that legacy, I know that my children and hopefully whoever they come encounter with and whatever field or path they take, they can instill that in others to push forward, and just be better people and better people the next day, and on and on and on. And so I think that's the legacy I would love to leave.
Thank you, Jonathan and Doc. Legacy for me is something that I always ask questions about. It's something that I always look for answers for. Something that I'm always investigating and really trying to get the real definition for me. What is legacy, right? So to me, it's something that I'm striving hard for to leave my children, my family, my wife, in regards to not just property, not just fortune, not just economics as it relates to whatever I have to, when I leave, not leaving them debt. Like one of the things that I wanted to do, my mother, she's she's in a home right now, a long-term care home, and she worked her butt off, 3 jobs, did her best, and continued to do her best, right? She's been in her house, I want to say, almost 40 years, and the house is not paid for. It's not paid for, and I always wanted to be in a better position. As Brother Jonathan said, I knew that my mother taught them principles to me. She wanted me to be in a better position than she was. And that's why she lived her life like she did. As Doc said, my mother went to church Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And most of the times as a young child, you don't have a choice. You have to go. And for the most part, I enjoyed it. It put principles in me that's still in me right now. That's one of the reasons why I love her unconditionally, because I knew her goal was to make me successful. Her goal was to lead me into God. Her goal was to allow me to be able to be a free thinker and be greater than she is, but also set the examples that she set for me, for my children. So when you talk about legacy, for me, legacy is creating opportunities for my family, specifically my children, so they can be way greater than me, but also for me, leaving them something that they can benefit from, and not debt. And then when you talk about leadership, leadership to me is the example that you set, and that you go in front. You always in the front, not somebody there should be an example for you to follow, but you have to know your purpose, and whatever your purpose is, you have to take the lead on that and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I want to have you all sort of wrap us up with this question. There are probably people watching, and later this is being recorded. People are going to watch, specifically men who are not fathers. And I would love for you to speak to them who are not biological fathers. So what is the role of men to young people in communities who are not necessarily biological fathers right now or may never be?
Let me go first so one of them can go last. I'll just say this is something that I'm quite sure Brother Jonathan and Doc, just once they wake up and leave their house, we set an example of how we should conduct ourselves, how we should transform our behavior, how we should operate as a man in our community. And we know people are watching us every single day, whether you know it or not. And the example that we set for a man or a young man who's not a father, but man, I like how Jonathan wears his suits and his tie. I like how Dr. Bundley, a Black doctor, is it a medical doctor? Is it a doctor, clinical doctor? Is a doctor in education? I want to be that. I love the title. So I think that once we leave our house, we're really in our house. Once we wake up with our children, the example is set, right? So I think it's a continuous effort that we should think that we're being watched by young men, and I'm setting the example, or I'm striving to set the example of how a father should conduct his life, how he should conduct his behavior, and how he should and how he should operate, whether it's in the workforce, whether it's in the community, or whether it's in his own business. But here's the example right here, as close as I can get it.
Where, John?
Doc, you're not gonna go. Oh, you okay? We'll save the best for last. We'll save Doc.
No, well, let me go. If we're gonna say the best for last, let me go.
I'll
go. You're gonna be the best.
No. You're gonna be the best.
No. We're gonna say the best for last.
No.
So let me go right now. So let me just say this, because we are gonna say the best for last. Let me just say, it's like, and Andrew just said it, like, I just want to be able to have them see in me what is, right? And the way that I've been working on myself, self-improvement, is that I just want to have and continue to have what I call and others call God confidence. Like when individuals, when the children or the family or whatever, when they see me, they see some pieces of God, right? But that's such a hard thing, but that's the reason I do it. Because I think we have to do what's hard, right? So that other people can be astounded by that which they would never try to do. That's why we say we know that Baltimore is a place, when you look at per capita, people die in our city per capita more than any city, almost as high as we have one of the worst crime rates in the country. But Andrew and I and the other men who are with us and women who are with us in Baltimore, we are believing that there's going to be a day that when one person dies in Baltimore, it's be one too many. But right now, we average more than 350 murders a year. Person died today. Six people got shot today, Andrew. One of them died, right? So that confidence, that whole example, you want them to see that example, and that's that God confidence. And you not only just have it, but you just got that kind of confidence and resilience. So even when trouble come, that you have some resilience, that you can, because you're human, but you bounce back because you have that thing inside of you. So, that's what I'm striving to do. And because we saved the best for last, I'm going to defer to Jonathan.
I'm not nowhere near the best, and you guys nailed it on the head. I think. I mean, I echo everything that these gentlemen just said, and I think it's so important that folks who are coming in contact with young men, young women, that they show that they know that they are an example, whether they believe it or not, right? Especially for our Black, brown folks, right? For our Black and Latino folks, for our minorities, right? It's important. I think we have more weight on our shoulders, this panel does, than anyone, in the work that we do, right? Because I think, and I'm going to speak for myself. There's challenges that, we may face that other folks don't face, even in the professional world, right? And I think it's important that we acknowledge it as professionals, acknowledge it as men, but also acknowledge it as role models, because, like you said, it's our duty to the community, to the youth, to see folks like us, to see folks like you, Shannon, like you, Brother Andrew, like you, Dr. Andrey L, to see that, because that's what's going to spark that inspiration. Maybe, you guys said that this is going to be recorded. Who knows who sees this? And they say, man, this is crazy. There's opportunities like that. I could be like that. I could be a doctor. I could work in Baltimore. I could work with youth, right? You never know who's going to be inspired by just something small. And like I said before, we are under the microscope. And it could be a good thing and it could be a bad thing, right? But we have to make sure that we push for it to be good, and that we know that we have this responsibility to the youth, to the community. And so, if you ask me, how important is it for someone who's playing a role of a father figure that may not be a biological father? It's major. It's so important. I think it's like extremely important. I think that sometimes that the folks that are playing these roles, don't necessarily know that they're playing this role, but they're doing a good job at it. So I want to give some gratitude to those folks, because they may be the unsung hero, or they may be doing this work not even knowing that. So, but I do want to emphasize that it's so important that they know that they are playing this role, and that there's a great responsibility. Like I said, there's great power, but with that great power, there's great responsibility. So, I just wanted to conclude with that.
It has been an honor, really, be in each and every one of your presences. It's so grounding to be able to listen to three Black men speak on being fathers. It's lovely and refreshing and wonderful. This is the thing. Everyone wants to talk to you. Everybody wants to talk to you. People in the chat want the opportunity to speak to you, and you will get to. We had a question, where do we find out more about each of your programs? And I want to let you know that we will go back to the conversation mode where we started this programming in just a few moments. But before we do, this wonderful conversation has been brought to you by the Pieces Collective, and Ikrama Mohammed is coming up just to talk to us a little bit more about the Pieces Collective. If you're ready, Ikrama, we will love to have you up here. In the meantime, thank you so much to all of our panelists. I have been so honored.
For having us.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you, Shannon.
Greetings. wasn't there at the beginning, but I think that's because we wanted to get right into this powerful conversation that you brothers just had. I mean, it was so moving and inspiring. And this is what the Wisdom, Wellness, and Wealth events and talks is all about. I don't want to come behind you speakers because I want people, what you have said, to resonate. But I do want to mention that we know that self-improvement is the basis for community development. And we hope that what you have said, I know what you have said, has inspired people and hopefully inspired them to action. And if they want to support the Pieces Collective, you can go to thepiecescollective.org. It's PEACES. And I also want you to support these organizations and these brothers here because I know the good work that each of them do out there every day, 24/7. So again, I want to thank you for that beautiful conversation. And I hope that you enjoy and benefit. And we can go to the chat. Well, not to the chat, we can go to the floor. And if there are people that are still there, you'll have the ability to conversate with them. And hopefully, if we can give out the websites or ways that people can get more information about them.